Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into a really complex and, frankly, deeply sensitive topic. We're going to impartially unpack the intricate web of alleged corruption and mismanagement at the Ram Mandir. And we're basing this entirely on recent investigative reports. We're talking about allegations involving millions of rupees, highly questionable land deals, and what looks like a massive internal syndicate. So let's jump right in and see exactly what this source material has brought to light regarding faith, funds, and some major systemic failures. To hook you right in, we've got to ask the central question of this whole explainer. How on earth did a syndicate allegedly manage to steal millions right from under the watchful eyes of high-tech TCS cameras and super strict State Bank of India audits? I mean, this wasn't some smash-and-grab bank robbery. According to the source, this was a highly coordinated operation taking place inside literally one of the most secure cash rooms in the entire country.
Let's start with Section 1, a betrayal of public faith.
To really grasp the emotional weight of this issue, the source material paints a pretty heartbreaking contrast. Think about it. On one side, you have working-class devotees, farmers offering up a part of their harvest, mothers cutting back on household expenses, laborers donating their life savings with just absolute pure faith. But on the other side, allegedly operating right inside the temple, a coordinated syndicate was exploiting that exact same faith. It really sets a devastating stage for understanding the mechanics of this alleged fraud.
Moving into Section 2, a trust without oversight.
Let's trace how this all began. So, following the Supreme Court verdict in November 2019, a trust was formed in February 2020 to manage the temple's construction and, of course, its funds. But here's the crucial part. The government made this trust completely autonomous. It operated like a private entity, which meant it was entirely exempt from right-to-information requests. The source actually calls it a black box. And because there was zero public transparency, severe warnings from a private audit firm in November 2020 were allegedly just ignored.
Get this, that private audit firm warned the trust point blank. They literally wrote, "The management is highly unprofessional. This will create a huge problem." They actually predicted theft and inappropriate transactions if systematic checks weren't put in place immediately. But instead of heeding this massive red flag, the investigative report claims these critical warning files were suppressed. They just buried them, allowing operations to continue with absolutely no standard operating procedures.
All right, Section 3, the cash counting syndicate.
With no oversight, the environment was basically perfect for an inside job. You might be wondering, who was actually counting the millions pouring in every day? Well, according to the source, instead of merit-based hiring, the State Bank of India was pressured to bring in unqualified loyalists. We're talking about nephews of drivers, brothers-in-law of trust members, basically handing the keys to the kingdom to relatives. These were folks earning modest monthly salaries who were suddenly tasked with handling immense wealth, chosen entirely based on nepotism rather than qualifications.
So how did they actually steal it? The source details this thing called the 120-note trick, and it's honestly a brilliantly simple skimming method. Here's how it worked. First, they'd gather mixed notes from the donation boxes. Then, when they were making bundles of 500 rupee notes, instead of the standard 100 notes, they'd sneak in 120. Next, an insider would write up an official voucher claiming there were only 100 notes in the bundle. Finally, right before depositing the cash at the bank, couriers would just skim those 20 unrecorded notes right off the top. They bypassed the whole system.
Now for Section 4, inflated land and missing gold.
Because this rabbit hole goes way deeper than just loose cash. The political opposition handed documents to the Special Investigation Team, or SIT, detailing some absolutely absurd real estate flips. In one specific instance, a piece of land was purchased for 2 crores. Then, literally 10 minutes later, that exact same land was allegedly sold to the trust for a staggering 18.5 crores. Think about that. That is an unexplained jump of 16.5 crores in 10 minutes, allegedly involving local politicians and even declared fugitives. And the material wealth wasn't just real estate either. The source details shocking claims about missing physical valuables. We're looking at allegations of 200 kilograms of silver bricks, handed over without a single receipt being issued. A 3-kilogram gold necklace and 1 kilogram of gold footwear, completely unaccounted for. And perhaps most distressingly for the public, there are active ongoing investigations into whether original, donated jewelry was systematically swapped out for fake replicas before ever making it into the official ledgers.
Which brings us to Section 5, the investigation and arrests.
The whole facade finally cracked in mid-2026. After the State Bank of India started flagging suspicious activity in March, trust officials reportedly refused to change out the suspect staff. So, hidden cameras were secretly installed in the counting room in May. And by June 4th, the trap was sprung. The syndicate was allegedly caught red-handed on tape, intentionally standing in front of standard CCTV cameras to block the view while they were literally stuffing bundles of cash into their clothes.
When the SIT raids happened, the scale of the grift they uncovered was just staggering. Let's look at the contrast here. You have Tinu Yadav, formerly an auto driver, suddenly found with a Fortuner SUV and property papers worth 50 crores. Or take Lavkush Mishra, a mechanic who was on a 12,000 rupees salary, who was suddenly building a 25 lakh house and hiding 10 lakhs in pure cash inside a heap of cow dung. No joke. The source uses this extreme contrast to illustrate just how lucrative this operation had allegedly become for these foot soldiers.
But hold on, because despite these dramatic arrests and the discovery that all their phones had been suspiciously formatted, critics are pointing out a massive conflict of interest at the very top. The preliminary SIT report was submitted directly to Additional Chief Secretary Sanjay Prasad. The catch here? Prasad is a sitting member of the very trust that is under investigation. So, reporting a systemic failure directly back to the system's own management? Yeah, that raises some major red flags.
So, what are the takeaways? Section 6, the call for transparency.
The overarching conclusion drawn from this entire investigation is that relying on blind trust is just no longer viable. The source strongly advocates for strict, non-negotiable systemic fixes. First, implementing right to information applicability, because public funds require public accountability. Second, they need to publish independent external annual audits. Third, creating a real-time digital dashboard so there's immediate transparency for donations. And finally, strictly separating the staff who actually count the money from the management overseeing the trust.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with the ultimate question that the opposition and this investigative report keeps raising. Have the real masterminds been caught, or just the foot soldiers? I mean, when auto drivers and mechanics are suddenly managing multi-core real estate empires, critics argue it's highly unlikely they orchestrated this massive operation entirely on their own. Will the true leaders of this alleged syndicate ever actually be exposed? Or is what we've covered today just the tip of a much, much larger iceberg? Thank you for joining me as we unpack this complex report. And remember, keep questioning the systems around you.